In episode 21, titled Develop the Incident Response Plan, we focus on designing a plan that actually works when the pressure is high and minutes matter. A practical incident response plan, IRP, explains who acts, what they do first, and how decisions move from detection to closure without drama. The most reliable plans read like a playbook the team already knows by heart because they have practiced it, spoken it aloud, and seen it succeed in drills. A short document with clear roles, crisp thresholds, and repeatable steps beats an encyclopedic binder no one opens. The goal here is a living operating guide that people reach for by reflex, supported by training, runbooks, and contact rosters that stay current, which together reduce ambiguity when an abnormal event becomes a confirmed incident. Severity levels convert uncertainty into action by attaching triggers to expectations. A simple 3- or 4-tier model works well when each level links to measurable indicators, such as number of systems affected, data sensitivity, customer impact, or regulatory exposure. For example, high might trigger immediate executive notification, hourly status updates, and a cross-functional bridge, while low remains within the SOC with next business day reporting. Triggers can include signatures of known ransomware, privilege escalation on crown jewel systems, or confirmed exfiltration of regulated data, each mapped to a severity. Every severity level also carries reporting expectations: who is informed, how frequently, what artifacts are shared, and when to consider escalation or de-escalation. When responders can look at a short table and infer the play, friction drops and the organization moves as one. Triage turns raw alerts into grounded incident narratives that guide action. The plan distinguishes 3 states: suspected, confirmed, and ongoing, and spells out the evidence required to move between them. In the suspected state, handlers validate indicators, correlate logs, check recent changes, and look for benign explanations, all while preserving volatile data that could vanish. Confirmation requires an agreed proof point, such as malicious process trees, data exfiltration evidence, or authoritative forensic signs, which elevates the case to the defined severity path. Ongoing incidents receive stabilized handling, regular situation reports, workstream leads, decision logs, and a watch on secondary effects. By documenting these transitions and their required checkpoints, the plan prevents premature closure and avoids the opposite problem of lingering in uncertainty when the facts already justify decisive action. Containment options should be pre-authorized, technically feasible, and matched to business criticality. Network isolation can range from a single host quarantine to segment-level access control list changes at defined choke points, and those moves require tested procedures to avoid collateral damage. Account suspension focuses on credentials and tokens, including forced password resets, multi-factor revocation, and session invalidation across key platforms such as identity providers and cloud consoles. Application or infrastructure kill switches provide a last resort path to halt high-risk processes or cut off external interfaces, ideally with documented side effects and rollback steps. The plan identifies which systems support which containment methods, who can execute them at any hour, and what approvals are needed at each severity level. When responders do not stop to ask, "Are we allowed?" valuable minutes are not lost. Notifications carry legal, contractual, and reputational implications, so the plan coordinates them carefully. A clear pathway aligns the incident coordinator with the executive sponsor and the Program Management Office, PMO, to decide who is told what and when. Internal stakeholders, such as product owners, site reliability leaders, and customer success teams, receive concise updates tailored to action, while external stakeholders, including customers, regulators, and law enforcement, are notified based on contract language and jurisdictional rules. The communications lead maintains templates for executive briefs, status notes, and outward-facing statements that avoid speculation and promise only what can be delivered. By defining timing expectations, such as first executive notice within 1 hour for high, and by mapping notification duties to roles and severity, the plan replaces improvisation with predictable, compliant communication. Evidence preservation enables learning, accountability, and, when needed, defensible disclosure. The plan describes how to capture system and application logs, packet traces, memory images, console output, and cloud service audit trails with minimal disruption. Volatile data receives priority because it disappears quickly under reboot, crash, or remediation, so responders follow a short sequence to secure it before taking containment steps that would erase context. A simple chain of custody practice, who collected which artifact, when it was collected, where it is stored, and who accessed it, protects integrity and supports potential investigations. Time synchronization using a single reference clock across systems and tools improves timeline accuracy, making it easier to reconstruct sequences and correlate actions with observed effects. When evidence flows into a central case folder with controlled access, review, and retention, the organization gains a reliable record. Playbooks translate the plan into scenario-specific moves with pre-checked assumptions. Common scenarios include ransomware on endpoints or servers, business email compromise, cloud credential theft, web application exploitation, and third-party outages affecting critical services. Each playbook begins with quick recognition signals like unusual encryption activity, suspicious mailbox rules, or identity provider anomalies, and ties them to the triage states and severity thresholds in the main plan. Containment and recovery steps are sequenced with decision points that factor in data sensitivity and service level commitments. For ransomware specifically, the playbook documents backup validation, segmented restoration, and clear positions on negotiation and payment consistent with law and policy. When playbooks align to the central roles, severities, and notification logic, responders move faster because they are not inventing a process while under pressure. Exercises convert paper confidence into operational competence. Tabletop sessions gather the coordinator, communications lead, technical handlers, and executives for a realistic but low-stakes walkthrough that tests assumptions and uncovers gaps. The most effective sessions use artifacts, mock tickets, timeline snippets, and sample dashboards to make the narrative vivid, then log issues to a punch list with owners and due dates. After real or simulated incidents, structured lessons learned reviews catalog what detection missed, which containment steps were slow, where approvals blocked flow, and how documentation could be sharper. Improvement items then track to closure in the same governance system that manages risk, change, or audit actions, so response gains compound over time. A plan that does not feed an improvement loop slowly drifts from reality, while a plan exercised quarterly stays aligned with the environment it must protect. One recurring pitfall is unclear authority, which delays the very first decisive moves. If no one knows who can isolate a production database node or disable a compromised administrator account at 2 in the morning, the incident will grow while people debate. The IRP resolves this by predefining authority by role and severity, documenting emergency approval paths, and naming on-call backups with escalation to executives for business risk trade-offs. Legal authority also matters. Data breach definitions vary by jurisdiction, and counsel should clarify when a security incident becomes a notifiable breach and who makes that determination. Clarity is protection here because it shortens the pause between detection and action, which is where most preventable harm accumulates. Small operational disciplines create outsized gains, and an up-to-date on-call roster is the simplest of these. The plan maintains current names, direct contact paths, and time-bound response targets for every role, with explicit coverage for weekends, holidays, and secondary time zones. Response targets might specify that the incident coordinator acknowledges pages within 5 minutes for high severity, while technical handlers begin containment work within 15, and the communications lead provides the first executive update within 30. These are not generic statements. They are practical service commitments with audit trails from paging systems and chat bridges that prove the clock was met. When teams know the expectations and see that the paging rhythm is sane and sustainable, they respond with confidence instead of fatigue. At Speed, responders benefit from a concise mental model that ties the plan together. Roles align people and decisions. Severity frames the scale of response. Triage establishes facts and confidence. Containment prevents spread. Communications keep everyone coordinated. And exercises build muscle memory. That sequence, practiced and reinforced, becomes a shared language across technical and non-technical teams, so that a short update conveys a lot of meaning. A simple example shows the rhythm. Suspected credential theft on Cloud Console. Elevated to confirmed. Severity high. Identity handler rotating keys and revoking sessions. Network handler inspecting egress. Comms drafting internal update. Next status in 30 minutes. When cross-functional teams use that cadence, context-switching costs drop and collaboration tightens. Putting the elements together yields a plan that remains readable under stress and measurable afterward. The document opens with scope and definitions, presents roles with backups, lays out severity criteria and associated expectations, and links to triage and containment playbooks by scenario. Notification matrices map stakeholders to levels and timeframes, while evidence procedures and chain of custody steps anchor integrity. Appendices capture the on-call roster, bridge details, paging instructions, and templates for situation reports and executive briefs. Nothing is decorative. Every section must earn its place by accelerating a safe decision or preventing a common error. When the plan is short enough to review in under 10 minutes and deep enough to resolve disputes in the moment, it starts to function as a real instrument rather than an artifact. Sustainment keeps the plan relevant as technologies, threats, and org charts change. Quarterly reviews fold in changes from architecture, identity systems, cloud providers, and key vendors, while post-incident actions update playbooks with new indicators and decision points. Metrics such as mean time to detect, mean time to contain, and mean time to recover provide a feedback loop, especially when trended by severity and scenario. Training rotates personnel through roles so more than one person can run the bridge or draft the executive update without delay. Vendors and third parties participate in selected exercises when contract obligations or shared platforms make them critical to a timely response. The plan, in other words, stays alive by staying connected to the living system it protects. Culture matters as much as mechanics, and the plan should encourage psychological safety and disciplined candor. Teams that fear blame hide weak signals and delay escalation, while teams that value transparency surface issues early and fix them faster. The communications lead sets tone by modeling careful language, stating facts, labeling assumptions, and avoiding premature conclusions. The coordinator reinforces discipline by maintaining a visible decision log, repeating goals at the top of updates, and closing loops on actions. This steady rhythm helps senior leaders trust the process and resist unhelpful interruptions, which in turn allows technical teams to execute cleanly. Over time, that trust becomes an asset that lowers response friction across the board. Modern environments make third-party coordination unavoidable, so the plan integrates vendor pathways directly. Incident contacts for cloud platforms, managed security providers, and critical SaaS tools are recorded with contract identifiers and severity-driven timelines. The plan clarifies evidence exchange expectations and confidentiality boundaries so that necessary telemetry can be shared quickly without breaching agreements. Where shared responsibility models apply, the playbooks specify which party leads containment for each surface area and which party merely advises. A simple example is instructive. The identity provider owns session revocation mechanics, while the customer owns policy decisions about which users to revoke and in what order. When those lines are clear before the emergency, clock time is saved during it. A final word on readiness and what comes next. An incident response plan, IRP, does its best work long before an incident in the way it shapes training, tools, authority, and expectations across the organization. This episode has traced a practical path from goals and roles through severity, triage, containment, communications, evidence, playbooks, exercises, and sustainment, emphasizing clarity and repeatability over theatrics. The immediate next action is straightforward and powerful. Schedule the next tabletop exercise with the designated coordinator, communications lead, and technical handlers, and use it to validate roles, thresholds, and evidence capture end to end. When that session concludes with a short list of improvements, assigned owners, and due dates, the plan moves from paper to practice, and readiness stops being a slogan. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.